Welcome back to another in our study of the parables of Jesus. Our parable today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. We shall consider the parable of light and salt. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. If you were given the task of listing virtues, where would you start? How many could you name? I suppose the first thing one would need to do would be to define what virtue is, defined as behavior showing high moral standards. Synonyms for virtue are goodness, morality, integrity, dignity, honesty, honor, to name a few. When you think of these qualities in a person, you look to that person as an example for others to follow. You know they hold these virtues and that it is not just an act. You can point to them for others to see and to tell young people that this is a life that emulates the very definition of virtue. People will follow someone with virtue, man or woman. Too often in our current culture, people are following the wrong type of characters. Gaudy, boastful, arrogant people, full of themselves who make splashy headlines. Young people are especially susceptible to these tendencies. They follow flawed individuals thinking that because one steals the headlines that they are worthy of admiration. Jesus tells those who would be his disciples that they are called to a higher standard. They are called to lead the charge, champion the cause, and to show the way. He used two items to show them, and us, what they and we are to be in fulfilling that call. Salt and light. But these aren't virtues. He could have used virtues and said, you are to be diligent, or you are to be courageous, or you are to be honorable. Any of the many virtues. Yet in calling us to be salt and light, Jesus correctly sets a standard by which presupposes every virtue there is to be, that which we must possess. Paul puts it this way in Philippians 4, 8, and 9. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have heard and received, and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Jesus would later chastise the leader of the Jews in his day, calling them hypocrites, accusing them of hypocrisy by saying, but not doing, only performing their duties so as to be seen by men. The praise they sought was not that which was given to God, but for themselves. Not so with the disciples of Christ. Their lives shouldn't seek the praise of men for themselves, but for the glory given to God. So what is salt and what is light? What is in these two elements that we are to be? There are several aspects to consider. First, the properties of salt, a preserver and much valued in the ancient world, often used as a currency in trade because of its precious nature. Still, there is another aspect to salt. We read in the Old Testament law in Leviticus 2:13, you shall season all your grain offerings. You shall not let the salt of the covenant with your God be missing from your grain offerings. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. Yes, every offering must include salt. That's curious in and of itself. We read further in Numbers chapter 18 and verse 19. All the holy contributions that the people of Israel present to the Lord, I give to you and to your sons and daughters with you as a perpetual due. It is a covenant of salt forever before the Lord for you and for your offspring with you. A covenant of salt. A covenant of salt. What is the significance of putting salt into every sacrifice? And what is implied in a covenant of salt? Jesus reaches back into the law to give a deep, deep spiritual meaning that the Jewish mind could draw the illustration and grasp his intent. You and I can do this as well. Knowing the preserving nature of salt and the significance of a covenant, that binds them together. Just as a handshake is the symbol of an oath and an agreement today, so is salt to the one who uses it. Our lives show a binding covenant with God for all to see. Further, Jesus relates our lives as light, a city set on a hill. What a magnificent illustration. John Winthrop, the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, used this phrase from Matthew's Gospel to describe the colony in the New World they had come. Presidents and politicians have used this phrase, a city on a hill, to bolster their belief that they desire the country to lead in ways of righteousness, by example, to the world. Light is often contrasted with that of darkness. Over and over in the New Testament, writers tell us of a world trapped in darkness. Paul writes to the church at Colossae in Colossians 1:13, "He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son." And again, Peter writes in 1 Peter 2:9, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." How can people find their way unless they too are led from darkness by a shining light? How's your light shining? And Lord willing, let's meet here again tomorrow and look at another parable of Jesus.